Today I'm gonna show you guys the essential materials that everyone that uses Blender or 3D softwares needs to know how to create them. Every single material that I'm gonna do, it's a procedural material, so every single material that I'm gonna show you guys, it's created with only nodes. So if you want to know every single essential material that you need to use, I'm gonna show you 3 materials and a bonus one. The first 3 materials are wood, metal and stone, and the bonus material will be only for everyone that stays until the end of this video. And I'm gonna show you these materials because I think that are the most essential ones, and I think that everyone that uses Blender or creates projects in 3D uses these materials for every single project. And because of that, I'm gonna show you how to create realistic materials using only nodes, and this works in Eevee and in Cycles. So if you are creating a scene in Eevee or in Cycles, every single material that I'm gonna show you will work for you. And if you want the Blender file with the scene already created and with all of the materials, you can go to my Patreon page where you have the Blender file and you just need to download it. If you like this video, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel. Go check it out my Instagram page. And with no further ado, let's go to Blender. Alright guys, here we are in Blender. So we're gonna start with the easiest one and then we will go further and we're gonna go to the more complex material. So the easiest one is metal. Click Shift A and let's add here a UV sphere, and in this UV sphere you can click Ctrl 2, Ctrl 1 or Ctrl 3 or more. It depends on what subdivision levels you want in your sphere. I only want to add 2 more subdivision levels, so I will click Ctrl 2 to add 2 more subdivision levels. And in here in the modifier tab you can see here that I have added 2 levels of viewport. Don't forget that in the render it's always in 2, so if you only want to add 1 in the viewport and if you like this like that, you need to change here in the render too. Alright guys, and I will use the 2 levels of subdivision and I'm gonna click Ctrl A here to apply this modifier. Right now I'm gonna just sharpen this object just to be better for you to see. If you don't have the hard ops add-on, you can go over here and normals and here auto smooth and put in 60 or in whatever angle you want. Alright guys, so right now let's go to the shading panel. Here in the shading panel, let's click new to add the new material. I'm gonna call it metal, and in the metal we're gonna use image texture. It's literally just to add some scratches, so if you want the same image texture you can go to my Patreon page, or if you don't want to become a Patreon you can go to Google and search for scratch textures and you're gonna find some images that you can use for this tutorial. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is to go over here to the place where I have that image texture. So over here in textures, scratches, and here I have the image texture that I'm gonna use. I will not use like roughness and normals and stuff like that and just put it and plug it in the principal BSDF. I'm gonna do something a little bit different because I want 2 principal BSDFs. So I'm gonna click Shift D to duplicate these principal BSDFs, add here a color ramp, plug to my roughness, and in this principal BSDF I'm gonna plug this color ramp to the metallic one. This color ramp now will be plugged in our image texture. So let's add here this roughness over here, plug this to the factor, and right now you can't see anything going on, but if I plug this in you can see what is going on to our image texture. I can bring this to have more and less roughness in the parts that I want. Basically everything that is black it's less rough and everything that is white is more rough. We just need to activate the metallic, so let's activate this metallic, and now you can see that we only have these things going on. I can change this to something like that, and now go over here to our color space and change this to non-color. So now let's go a step further and we're gonna add here a mix shader. We're gonna put this principal BSDF there and this one over here, and let's plug this to the material output. Now what we're gonna do, it's basically we're gonna use our scratch PNG, so basically this photo over here, and we're gonna use this to the factor of these 2 principal BSDFs. It's really easy to create this effect. Basically this principal BSDF it's plugged in the metallic effect, so I'm gonna add now the scratches. These scratches will be controlled by this color ramp that I'm gonna add right now. So basically now I can change the scratches. You can see over here the scratches fading out. Now we have our metallic object, but the metal has like a color of like a bluish color. So let's change here in our first principal BSTF, where we can change this color to something more bluish like that, and now we have our metal created. It's very easy, very simple, and it's useful for everything. I'm gonna add here a Susano. I just need to click Shift A. In Mesh I have here a Susano, right here, the monkey. So I'm gonna bring this over here. I'm gonna click Ctrl 2 just to add more subdivision levels, and now let's add here our metal material, and I'm gonna just sharpen this. Alright, let's go over here to our modifier and click Ctrl A to apply it. So here it is, our metal material. I'm gonna activate the ambient occlusion, the bloom, and the screen face reflections, and now you can see that it's looking pretty good and it's very simple to create. So now let's go to the second material. Alright guys, so the second material that we're gonna do, it's wood. It's one of the easiest materials to create, but metal, it's literally just adding some scratches just to have it more realistic. And in wood we're gonna use only nodes, so you don't need to download any image texture because everything will be with nodes. Alright guys, so let's do the same thing that we will have already done. Let's click Shift A, and in Mesh let's add here a UV sphere. Ctrl 2 to add 2 levels of subdivision. Let's go to our modifier panel, Ctrl A to apply our modifier, and I'm gonna sharpen this. If you want to sharpen, click over here and just auto smooth, activate this and play around with this angle. Alright guys, so let's go to the shading panel, and here in the shading panel we're gonna add a new material. So this new material will be wood, and to create wood it's very simple. Basically we need to play around with a noise texture and with a Musgrave texture. Let's add here a noise texture right over here, and let's add here a Musgrave texture. You have a lot of variations of every single material that I'm gonna show you, because every single material has a lot of variations. Like wood, you can create like a material for trees, and it's very different from this material, but I'm showing you the principal materials that you will gonna use like in an architectural visualization or in an environment creating something in Blender. You're gonna use one of these materials. So now what we want is to plug this height into the vector, just like that. We're gonna click Ctrl T, and over here we're gonna change this generator to object, just like that. So basically right now we have this going on. We have some Musgrave and some noise texture just to randomize a little bit and to distort, because a noise texture is literally to distort. So basically that's what this noise texture is doing. So now let's over here a color ramp, and let's plug this right over here, and let me just plug this over here, and this color ramp will be in our base color and in our subsurface color. We're gonna use a little bit of subsurface, so I can change this a little bit like that. So right now what we're gonna do, it's basically changing here the colors. We want this white in black, we want this black in something like an orange. So if you want the same color that I'm using, the exact same color, you can just copy the hex value that I'm showing you like that. And let's bring this light orange over here, and let's put this a little bit like that, just to have these marks appearing in our object. And now we're gonna add like a dark brown, so let's click in add, and in here we're gonna add here a dark brown, just like that. This is the hex value, so you can copy. Let's change this, let's put this a little bit over here, and this one a little bit over here, just like that. Alright, and you can play around with these values for your own sake. Alright guys, so now let's change some values in our noise texture. In our noise texture, basically we want to change the detail to something like 15, that is the max. And here in the roughness we're gonna just bring it a little bit like that, 0.508, it's good. And let's change the distortion to like 4. Alright, and here we need to change some values here in our Musgrave texture. So let's go and change here the scale to something like 0.8. You can use the same values that I'm using, or you can play it around. And now what we're gonna do, it's just to change here in our scale the X to a minor value like 0.7 or 0.6. and here in our Y scale we're gonna change this to something like 2.5, 2.8. I remember that I used the 2.8, so you can use the same one. And now let's add another color ramp. So basically this color ramp will be to control our roughness, because right now we have roughness of 0.5. We don't want that. We want to change the roughness, and we want to have control of where we want some roughness and where we want less roughness. So for that I'm gonna click Shift D to duplicate this color ramp, and I can do something different. Like, if you don't know, if you click Ctrl Shift D you can duplicate it and it will be already plugged into your other node. So right now go over here and reset our color ramp, because I don't want that colors and I don't need them because I'm using roughness. So let's plug this to the roughness, and this is really cool. I'm gonna click Ctrl Shift, click in this color ramp. I'm gonna show you what is going on. This is our roughness map. I'm gonna show you what happens. Basically everything that is white will be more rough and everything that is black will be less rough. So I'm gonna just add a little bit of contrast just like that, and let's just plug this material output, and now we have this going on. But I don't want this like that. Why? Because I want to invert this roughness. I don't want this to be here white and here black. I want the invert. I want here white and in here black. So for that we have a really cool node that is basically an invert node. We click invert and we just put over here. I don't want to invert a lot, so I'm gonna just bring this a little bit down to something like 0.2 or something like that, and I'm gonna bring this a little bit down, something like that. I think it was too rough. So now what we need to do to add that realistic to our object is just to add a bump node. And let me just say that in the metal material you can add a bump node. I didn't add it because I thought that it's better to start with simple and then we're gonna add more nodes and more nodes and more nodes. But if you want, you can add a bump node in the metal material. Right now I'm gonna plug this noise texture, the factor of our noise texture, to the height and the bump to the normal. And now we probably have too much, so let's just go over here to our strength and change this to something like 0.09. And you remember that we plug this color ramp to our subsurface color, so that's because we will use the subsurface over here just to add a little bit of color, that reddish color. Basically the subsurface, it was used more often for skin color because it adds like that reddish tone, so that's why we're gonna use here just to add that red tone in our wood material. And this is the material. I hope you enjoyed this material, this wood material. And with that, let's go to the last material and then we're gonna go to the bonus material. So let's go for that. Now this last material is stone. Stone, it's a very easy material to do, but it's more complex than the others. It depends on how you are creating this material and how realistic you want these materials, because you can add more nodes to the wood material or to the metal material, like I said, and with that you can have a more realistic material. But now let's talk about this stone material. Let's go to our shading panel. I have already added this sphere and everything just to jump that part, and let's click in a new material. Let's change this to stone. The first node that we're gonna add, it's a Voronoi texture and a noise texture. So let's add here a Voronoi texture and a noise texture. This color will be plugged in our vector, so we're gonna add a texture coordinate. So for that, click Ctrl T and just delete this mapping node, and I'm gonna use the object just like that and plug this to the vector. We can see anything going on. Let's click Ctrl Shift and see what is going on in our Voronoi texture. And right now we just need to add more detail. Let's put here in 15, and roughness is good. So first of all, right now this will be our stone material, so let's add here a color ramp. Change here this color to gray. So if you want to use the same color that I'm gonna use, just copy this hex value, and in here we're gonna use this hex value. It's basically a gray color but a more dark one. So right now what we're gonna add, it's a mix node. With this new version we don't have a mix node, we have something different, that is basically everything together. So if we search for mix, we only have this mix, and then we can change here from float to color, and now we have a mix RGB. That's what we will use for this color ramp. So basically now let's just plug this color ramp over here and this mix RGB to the base color. Change here the factor to something like 0.3, and now what we will gonna do, it's basically add another level of texture in our material. We're gonna just click shift in these two, Control Shift D, and these two nodes will be already plugged in our object texture coordinate. We're gonna change the scale to 2. Alright, you're gonna see what is going on right now, because now we're gonna add another level to add more a realistic effect. So let's plug this distance to this B socket on our Mix RGB, and let's add a color ramp right over here and plug the distance to the factor. Let's see what is going on right now. So if we bring this like that, we can see anything going on, but that's a good thing. Why? Because we're gonna add a bump node over here. First we're gonna add a bump node to our Mix RGB. So let's add here a bump node, and we're gonna duplicate this bump 3 times, 1 and 3. This bump will be over here in our Mix RGB. Alright, we don't need to see it right now. I'm gonna just bring this strength to something like 0.2, and now we're gonna add here a color ramp for our roughness, because we want more control in every single aspect of this material, and because of that we want to control the roughness. To control the roughness, it's very easy. We just need to add a color ramp and plug this to the roughness just like that, and now we just need to plug our Mix RGB to this factor just like that. Basically right now we have a lot of contrast, so what I'm gonna change here, it's basically bring this a little bit down like that. And now I'm gonna show you what is going on in our bump. Alright, so this is what is going on in our bump node with this Mix RGB. Now change this mix to darken, and let's plug this principal BSDF, put here the material output, and now this is what is going on in our scene. So basically now we just need to plug this bump to our normal just like that, and plug this bump to our normal just like that, and this bump will be plugged in our color ramp right over here, heights, and then to normal, and now it's looking pretty good, but we need to have some variations going on. So let's change here the strength to something like 0.2. Here we're gonna bring this to 0.3, and here we're gonna bring this to 0.4, and then what we're gonna do, it's basically add another level of Voronoi texture and noise texture. Let's click shift in these two, Control Shift D to duplicate, and now we just need to plug this distance to our height just like that. I'm gonna change the scale of this one to like 8. Alright, here I'm gonna bring this to 6. If you want less strength, you can bring this a little bit down to something like that, 0.3, and this a little bit down too to something like 0.1. And now we have our stone material created. I hope you enjoyed this material and these 3 materials that I show you. Right now, if you have seen all of this video, you now have a bonus material that I'm gonna show you. It's a very simple material, but a very cool way to create it. So let's go straight into it. So this bonus material, it's very easy. It's basically, I'm gonna show you how to create glass in Blender, but I hope a lot of you guys already know how to create glass, but I'm gonna show you a really cool effect that you can add for your projects. So for that, let's go to shading panel, and glass material, it's a very easy material to create. It's not very difficult. Let's click new and let's change the name to glass. Remove this principal BSDF, and we're gonna use here a glass node, and what we're gonna use here, it's a mix shader. So we're gonna mix 2 nodes. It's very easy. We're gonna mix a glass BSDF and a transparent BSDF. This is the most fast way to create glass, and it works perfectly. Alright guys, so we just use these 2 just like that, and you can see something really different going on. So basically we have here an IOR of 1.450, but if you don't know, this is a IOR, or an index of refraction of glass, but a Pyrex glass, but we want only glass, so for that we need to change the IOR to 1.5, and that's something that a lot of people don't know, that you can create with glass water, and it's very easy. But if you don't know the index of refraction of water, you will use the same of glass, and then you don't have a realistic material. That's why we have here our index of refraction to change that IOR and to change that value for the material that we are creating. And now we have a really cool thing to do. Basically, I'm gonna add here a light path, because this glass will have to play around with our light path. So basically, I'm gonna add here a math node. I'm gonna plug 2 points of this light path. So basically we have here our reflection, and you can play around, you can change this, you can use different ones, but I was trying some different ones and I saw that these are the best ones to create this glass material, and we're gonna use here the shadow. Add this to the value. I don't want this in add, I want this in multiply, and let's plug this to our material, and now we have a simple glass material. But that's not it, guys, because we can go a step further and we can add here some effects, like if the glass is like dirty or something like that, we can add that stuff. So basically, if we add here a noise texture, plug this noise texture to our roughness, add here a color ramp, and now we can change how this looks. So basically, if I change here the scale to something like that and the detail to something like 15, alright, and the roughness, we can bring this up and down, and a little bit of distortion, of course. And now with this we can add this simple effect. Basically it will give a foggy look to our glass. If you are creating some foggy environments or something like that, this is a really cool way to create it. And not just that, because I'm gonna show you here in a plane for you to see, like if it was a window. This is basically what's going on. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this video helped you to create some realistic materials. I'm thinking in doing a live of just showcasing every single material or the best materials in 3D that everyone should know. So if you think that is a good idea, just let me know and click in the like button of this video, and don't forget to subscribe the channel. As I said, if you want everything like the blend file or the scene that I created, and you are seeing right now the scene, you can go to my Patreon page, and there you have the image texture that I use and every single material that I use in this video. And I hope you enjoyed this video and this video helped you, and I see you in the next video. Bye!